Hello everyone, welcome to my political journalism news channel. The story for today is Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk has responded to Prime Minister Scott Morrison's move to a national emergency declaration after catastrophic flooding in Queensland. Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk said the time for a national disaster declaration in Queensland has passed as flood waters in the state's southeast recede. Prime Minister Scott Morrison on Wednesday said he intended to recommend the declaration to the Governor-General, covering the severe weather and flooding in both Queensland and New South Wales. That declaration requires me to consult both with the New South Wales Premier and the Queensland Premier. The way this occurs is they both write to me requesting that be put in place, he said. I intend to meet with the Governor-General on Friday in Canberra to be able to complete those formalities. Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk said the time for a national disaster declaration in Queensland has passed as flood waters in the state's southeast recede. Prime Minister Scott Morrison on Wednesday said he intended to recommend the declaration to the Governor-General, covering the severe weather and flooding in both Queensland and New South Wales. That declaration requires me to consult both with the New South Wales Premier and the Queensland Premier. The way this occurs is they both write to me requesting that be put in place, he said. I intend to meet with the Governor-General on Friday in Canberra to be able to complete those formalities. Stream more national news live on demand with Flash, Australia's biggest news streaming service. New to Flash? Try 1 month free now. Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk tours the flood-damaged Kedron Cycleway, Lutwyche. Picture, Liam Kidston. Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk tours the flood-damaged Kedron Cycleway, Lutwyche. Picture, Liam Kidston, but Ms. Palaszczuk on Thursday said Queensland had gone past the point of where a national emergency declaration is essential. The time for that national emergency was probably a week ago, so we've actually gone past that. The flood waters have gone down, they've subsided, she said. Ms. Palaszczuk said Queensland had activated its own state-specific disaster declarations in response to catastrophic flooding in the state's southeast, which first unfolded late last month. A disaster declaration was made in Gympie on February 26, followed by Brisbane on February 27 and Maryborough on the same day. The declarations are set to be lifted on Sunday. Queensland has very good disaster management arrangements in place. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of national disasters, so we actually respond very quickly, Ms. Palaszczuk said. We've actually used our own state-specific disaster declarations and they've provided us with all the necessary powers that we need, especially when it means like closing roads or closing schools or relocating people. Mr. Morrison on Wednesday defended waiting more than a week after the flooding first occurred before announcing the move towards the national emergency declaration, established after the Black Summer bushfires. First of all, we have moved from a major flood event to a natural disaster. That is what has occurred over the course of the last few days, he said. And at this stage, state of emergencies have not been declared at a state level in either New South Wales, or to the best of my knowledge, in Queensland. And so it will actually be the Commonwealth that will be the first to move on that. All this does is effectively remove some red tape when it comes to how Commonwealth agencies are able to perform their duties in relation to this disaster. It doesn't impact on the ADF resources. They're already fully available. It doesn't trigger any payments. Ms. Palaszczuk later took aim at the federal government's Emergency Response Fund, which was established in December 2019 and has close to $5 billion in funds. Several projects Queensland had wanted financed through the fund had not been allocated any money. You can have a fund and not use it, so I honestly believe that if you've got the money there, let's get it out the door, she said. Unfortunately, Queensland submitted 20 projects, seeking $127 million, so when you think about it, $127 million out of $5 billion is not that much. And only 3 Queensland projects were approved. Ms. Palaszczuk did offer praise for Mr. Morrison's support in providing on-the-ground Defence Force personnel as the recovery operation continues. In relation to the Australian Defence Force, we now have the Major General in place and look, the Prime Minister has been very good there, where he has said any assistance we need with the Defence Force we can utilise, and that's exactly what's been happening, she said. Mr. Morrison on Thursday said $127 million in flood support has been given to Queenslanders following this year's flooding. He also said there are 1,289 Defence Force personnel already deployed in Queensland to assist in the clean-up. That is all for today news. Thank you for watching to my channel. Please be sure to leave your comment and subscribe below for more news update.